When I lost that ring 20 years ago, I thought it was just a piece of metal, a memory that slipped away with time. But now, as I hold it again, resting in the palm of my hand, I realize it wasn't lost at all. It was waiting, patiently, to bring me back to the person I was meant to find. I still remember the day it disappeared. It was summer, and I was 23, young, in love, and certain that the world had already shown me everything it had to offer. The ring wasn't expensive, it wasn't made of gold or silver. It was just a small band with a tiny blue stone that caught the light when I laughed. My mother gave it to me the day she passed away. She said, "Keep this with you, Anna. It will remind you that love never leaves. It just changes form." Back then, I didn't understand what she meant, but when the ring slipped from my finger that afternoon, disappearing somewhere between the garden and the lake, it felt like I'd lost her all over again. For years, I carried that emptiness, a quiet ache that sat somewhere between memory and longing. Life moved on, as it always does. I got married, had children, learned to smile even when my heart didn't fully remember how. But sometimes, on quiet evenings, I'd still feel the weight of that missing ring, as if my hand remembered something my mind had forgotten. And then, one ordinary morning, everything changed. A man I had never met before knocked on my door holding a small velvet box. He said, "I think this belongs to you." Inside the box was the ring, my mother's ring, exactly as I remembered it, except it was shining brighter than ever before. In that moment, I didn't know that this man, a stranger, would soon become the person I'd been waiting for all along, that the story of my lost ring was really the story of finding my soulmate. My name is Anna Mitchell, and for most of my life, I believed love was something you built, not something you found. When I was younger, I thought love meant holding on tightly, making things work no matter what. I didn't realize that sometimes love is quiet. It slips in through small moments, soft glances, and second chances you never expected. After I lost my mother's ring, life kept moving forward like a train that doesn't wait for anyone. I finished college, got my first job at a local bookstore, and fell in love with a man named Michael. He was calm, patient, and had a smile that could silence my worries. We met over a book I was shelving. He asked for something hopeful but not romantic. I remember laughing and handing him a collection of short stories about forgiveness. That was how it began. Not with fireworks, not with fate, just two people talking about books in the quiet corner of a shop. We got married a year later. It was a small wedding, under the same oak tree where I used to sit with my mother. Even though I didn't have her ring anymore, I still felt her presence in the wind that afternoon. She would have liked Michael. He was steady, kind, and never raised his voice. For a long time, we were happy. The kind of happiness that doesn't shout. It just hums softly in the background. We bought a little house near the lake, the same one where I'd lost my ring. We had two children, Eleanor and Ben, both with his gentle eyes. Life was busy and beautiful in small, ordinary ways. But as the years went by, things began to change. Not suddenly, but slowly, like colors fading from an old photograph. Michael became quieter. He spent more time at work, less time at home. I told myself it was just life, that marriages change, that love doesn't always feel like it used to. Still, I missed the small things. His laugh, the way he'd reach for my hand during dinner, the quiet talks before bed. One night, after the kids were asleep, I found myself sitting by the lake again. The moonlight touched the water just like it had 20 years ago. I closed my eyes and whispered to my mother, "I wish I could find what I lost." I wasn't talking about the ring anymore. I was talking about myself. The next morning, I decided to change something. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. It felt strange at first, holding a brush instead of laundry detergent, watching color bloom instead of dust. It became my quiet space, my reminder that I still existed beyond being a wife and a mother. Michael noticed, but he didn't say much. He'd watch me from the kitchen doorway, coffee in hand, a tired look on his face. Once he said softly, "I miss you sometimes, even when you're right here." I smiled, but inside, my heart cracked a little, because I felt the same way, like we were both standing in the same room, but miles apart. Our children grew up, left for college, and suddenly the house was too quiet. The walls echoed with old laughter that seemed to belong to another life. Michael and I had become polite strangers, kind, gentle, but distant. There was no anger between us, just silence. Then, one winter evening, he got sick. At first it was small, a cough, fatigue, but soon the doctors told us it was serious. I sat beside his hospital bed, holding his hand, remembering all the years we had built together. He looked at me and whispered, "You've always been the best part of my story." I smiled through tears. When he passed, it felt like the last light in my life had gone out. For months, I lived like a ghost. I still went to the bookstore, still painted sometimes, but everything felt empty. Grief is strange. It doesn't scream. It just sits quietly in the corners of your house, waiting for you to notice it. Then, one spring morning, I decided to visit the lake again. The same one that had witnessed so many of my memories: love, loss, laughter, and loneliness. I brought a small bouquet of white flowers, the kind my mother loved. As I sat there, the wind brushed my face gently, almost like a whisper. And for the first time in years, I spoke out loud. "I hope you're both at peace now." That moment changed something in me. Not dramatically, just a soft shift inside, like a door opening somewhere deep in my heart. I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, life still had something waiting for me. I started volunteering at a local art center, teaching painting to children. It filled my days with laughter again. The world slowly began to feel colorful. Not bright, but warm. Still, some nights I dream of the ring. In my dreams, I was walking along the lake, reaching into the water, but I could never quite grasp it. It always shimmered just beyond my reach. One evening after class, an elderly woman approached me. She smiled kindly and said, "You paint like someone who's lost something." I laughed softly. "Maybe because I have." She nodded, as if she understood. Then she said something that stayed with me. Things we lose often find their way back, but only when we're ready to receive them. At the time, I thought she was speaking metaphorically. I didn't know she was right, that my lost ring and the love it symbolized were both waiting to return to me in a way I could never have imagined. Because sometimes fate doesn't forget. It just waits for the right moment and the right person to bring everything back together. The spring that followed was softer than usual. The lake was full again after the winter rains, and sometimes I'd sit by the water for hours, just watching the ripples chase each other. It became my quiet ritual. Something about that place felt alive, as if it remembered everything that had ever happened there. One afternoon, as I packed up my brushes after class, I overheard a few of the volunteers talking about a community cleanup near the lake. They needed extra hands. Without thinking, I signed up. It felt like a small way to give back, to care for the place that had carried so many of my memories. The cleanup day was bright and warm. Children laughed, birds sang, and the air smelled like wet soil and daisies. We picked up old bottles, plastic bags, and small forgotten things that time had left behind. And then, near the far end of the lake, something caught my eye, a glint of light in the mud. For a moment, my heart skipped. It couldn't be, I told myself. But I knelt down anyway, brushing the dirt aside with my fingers. It was just a broken piece of glass, curved like a tiny moon. I let out a quiet laugh, part relief, part sadness. I realized I'd spent half my life still looking for that ring, even when I told myself I'd moved on. Later that evening, as I walked home, the sun dipped low behind the trees. The sky turned gold, then pink, then deep blue. I felt something stir inside me, a strange mix of peace and longing. Maybe it was time to stop searching for what I lost and start opening myself to what might still find me. A few days later, I received a letter. It was unusual. A handwritten envelope with no return address, just my name and the town. The handwriting was neat, careful. Inside was a small note that said, "I found something near the lake that I think belongs to you. Please call if you wish to see it." There was a phone number underneath. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to throw it away, thinking it was some mistake or prank. But another part, the quiet, curious part, couldn't ignore it. That night, I placed the note on my bedside table and told myself I'd decide tomorrow. Tomorrow came, and I still hadn't called. Days passed, but the thought of it wouldn't leave me alone. Finally, one morning, as I sipped my tea and looked out the window, I took a deep breath and dialed the number. A man answered, his voice gentle and calm. "Hello?" I hesitated. I got a note from you about something you found." There was a short pause, then he said softly, "Yes. Are you Anna Mitchell?" My heart thudded. "Yes, I am." He sounded almost relieved. "Then I think I have something that belongs to you." He told me he'd found it near the lake while planting trees with his daughter. He said it looked old, maybe valuable, and that it had initials engraved inside. "Does it say A.M.?" I asked quietly. There was silence on the line for a moment. Then, softly, he said, "Yes, it does." My breath caught. It was my mother's ring. We agreed to meet that afternoon at the small cafe near the park. The hours between the call and that meeting felt like an entire lifetime. I kept pacing, my mind spinning with questions. Who was this man? How could he have found it after 20 years? And why now, when I was finally learning to live with the emptiness? When I arrived, the cafe was quiet. The smell of coffee and the cinnamon in the air. A man stood by the window, holding a small velvet box. He was in his 40s, maybe early 50s, tall, with kind eyes, and a calm presence. He smiled when he saw me. "You must be Anna." I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. "And you must be the one who found my ring." He handed me the box. Inside, the ring gleamed softly, as if it had never been lost at all. For a long moment, I just stared at it. I felt tears blur my vision. "It was near the water," he said gently, "half buried under a tree root. My daughter thought it was treasure." I laughed quietly, brushing a tear from my cheek. "It is." We sat down, and for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt since Michael passed. Comfort. His name was Daniel Carter. He was a widower too. His wife, Emily, had passed away 3 years earlier. He lived just a few miles away, but somehow we had never crossed paths. He told me about his daughter, Sophie, a bright, curious teenager who loved exploring, They had been walking by the lake when she spotted the ring in the mud. When he saw the engraving, AM, he decided to find the owner. I asked around, he said. An old man at the library remembered a woman who used to paint by the lake years ago. He gave me your name. I smiled, touched by the thoughtfulness. That's quite a story, I said softly. He chuckled. It seems your ring didn't want to stay lost. As we talked, something unexpected happened. Time seemed to slow down. We spoke about small things, books, gardens, grief, and quiet mornings. There was no rush, no awkwardness, just a gentle understanding. It felt familiar somehow. When I finally left the cafe, the ring was back on my finger. But more than that, a strange warmth lingered in my chest, the kind that comes when life surprises you with kindness. Over the next few weeks, Daniel and I began to see each other more often. At first, it was just friendly. Coffee after errands, walks around the lake, helping out at the art center. He had this calm way of being present, listening fully without trying to fix anything. It reminded me of something my mother used to say. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive to fill the silence. It just sits beside you in it. Still, I tried not to read too much into it. We were two people who had both lost deeply. Maybe we just understood each other's loneliness. But then, there were moments. Like the evening he came by with his daughter to drop off some donated art supplies. Sophie wandered around my studio, admiring the paintings. She picked up a small canvas of the lake and said, "This feels like home." Daniel looked at me and smiled. That soft, knowing smile that said more than words ever could. Or the day I slipped and almost dropped my coffee at the park, and he reached out instinctively, catching my hand before it fell. Our fingers brush, just for a second, but it sent a quiet spark through me. Not excitement, something gentler, like recognition. And that's when the conflict inside me began. I wasn't sure what I was feeling. I wasn't sure I was allowed to feel it. It had only been 2 years since Michael's passing. Was it too soon to open my heart again? Could love really come twice in one lifetime? Or was this something else entirely? That night, I sat by the lake once more, wearing the ring again, after all these years. The moonlight danced across the water, and I whispered to the wind, "What are you trying to tell me?" I thought I felt my mother's presence then. Not as a voice, but as a warmth, a calm reminder that love doesn't end when life does. It simply changes direction. But even as I found peace in that thought, I also felt fear, because falling in love again meant risking another loss. It meant opening the part of myself I had kept closed for so long. Daniel and I continued to meet, but I began to pull back slightly, not out of disinterest, but out of confusion. He noticed. One evening as we walked near the lake, he said quietly, "Did I do something wrong?" I shook my head. "No, it's not you. It's me trying to figure out what I'm feeling." He nodded, his gaze soft. "You don't have to rush it. I understand." And he did. That's what made it even harder. After that night, I avoided him for a while. Not completely, but enough to create space. I told myself it was better this way. Safer. But every time I looked at the ring on my finger, I felt the same gentle pull, like the universe was reminding me that the story wasn't finished yet. Weeks later, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a small note in Daniel's handwriting. "If you ever want to talk, I'll be at the cafe, same seat by the window." It was dated for that afternoon. I hesitated for hours. Then, just before sunset, I found myself walking toward the cafe again. I didn't know what I would say. I only knew that somehow the ring that reappeared after 20 years had done more than bring back a memory. It had brought me face to face with the possibility of love, the kind I thought I'd lost forever. And as I opened the cafe door, the little bell chimed softly, a sound that somehow felt like the beginning of something I wasn't sure I was ready for, but maybe I needed. The cafe looked exactly as it had the first day we met. The same golden light through the windows, the same hum of quiet conversation, and the same seat by the window where Daniel always sat. He saw me before I saw him. He didn't wave or stand up right away. He just smiled, that small, patient smile that made everything feel slower, safer. I hesitated by the door for a few seconds before walking toward him. "Hi," I said softly. "Hi," he replied, his eyes kind. "I didn't think you'd come." "Neither did I admitted. We both laughed gently, the tension easing like air leaving a balloon. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Coffee?" I nodded, and he signaled the waitress. For a moment, we just sat in comfortable silence. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the space between us. Then he spoke. "You don't have to explain anything, Anna. I know what loss feels like. It doesn't just go away. It stays in quiet ways." I nodded slowly. Sometimes I think grief becomes part of who we are, like a shadow that doesn't leave even when the light changes. He looked down at his cup, tracing the rim with his finger. "That's beautifully said." We talked for hours that day about love, loss, children, art, the small joys that made life worth living. He told me about his late wife, Emily, how she loved to garden, how she would hum to herself while cooking, how she always saw beauty in ordinary things. When he spoke of her, his voice didn't break. It softened. It wasn't pain anymore. It was gratitude. "I used to think I'd never meet anyone like her again," he said quietly. "And maybe I won't. But meeting you, Anna, it doesn't feel like replacing something. It feels like remembering how to feel again." Something in me shifted when he said that. I didn't reply, I just smiled faintly, feeling warmth rise behind my eyes. After that day, we started spending more time together. Not every day, but often enough to feel the world turning a little brighter. We went for long walks by the lake, sometimes talking, sometimes saying nothing at all. He'd bring his dog, a golden retriever named Milo, and I'd bring my sketchbook. He'd sit beside me while I painted, occasionally glancing over with quiet admiration. Once he said, "You paint like you're remembering something you haven't lived yet." I didn't know what he meant, but the words stayed with me. As spring melted into early summer, our bond grew deeper. It wasn't romantic in the beginning. It was gentle, grounded, and full of peace. But slowly, the way he looked at me began to change, and I felt it too. That quiet, unmistakable pull, the kind that feels like déjà vu, like something written long before you ever arrived. Then, one evening, something happened that neither of us expected. It was late, the kind of night when the air feels soft and the world feels far away. Daniel had invited me over for dinner, just the three of us, him, Sophie, and me. His house was small but warm, filled with photographs and soft light. Sophie had cooked pasta, and she insisted I sit at the head of the table. As we talked and laughed, I noticed a picture on the wall, a black and white photo of a woman standing by the same lake where we first met. She was smiling, holding a small child. Something about the image made my heart pause. "That's Emily," Daniel said, following my gaze. "Sophie found that photo last year. It was taken by the lake. She loved that place." I stood up to look closer. In the background, I noticed something odd. A small wooden bench beneath the oak tree. And next to it, I could see a figure, blurry, barely visible. But it was me. At least it looked like me, standing by the water, wearing the same floral dress I had 20 years ago, painting near the shore. I turned to Daniel, my voice shaking slightly. When was this taken? He frowned slightly. Sophie was maybe 2 or 3 years old, so about 20 years ago. Why? I pointed at the photo. That woman, behind Emily, that's me. He leaned in, his eyes narrowing. For a moment, he said nothing, then softly, "You're right, it is you." We both stood there in silence, staring at the photo. Goosebumps rose on my arms. 20 years ago, the same year I lost my mother's ring. The same year Emily stood by that lake with her little girl. The same year I painted there almost every day. Daniel looked at me, his voice gentle but filled with awe. He said, "I think you were both there that day. Maybe that's when you lost it." I nodded slowly, tears forming. And maybe she found it. The thought took my breath away. Could it be possible that Emily had found my ring all those years ago, and somehow after she was gone, it found its way back to me through Daniel and Sophie? It felt impossible, and yet too perfect to be a coincidence. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he said softly, "Maybe the ring was meant to connect us, not just through loss, but through love, through something bigger than both of us." I didn't know what to say, so I did the only thing I could. I reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. That night, as I drove home, the stars were bright above the lake. I parked by the water, got out, and walked to the same oak tree that had witnessed so much of my life. The air smelled of rain and earth. I looked down at the ring on my finger, my mother's ring, now shining under starlight, and I whispered, "So this is what you meant, Mom. Love never leaves. It just changes form." For the first time in years, I didn't feel lonely. I felt guided. From that evening on, Daniel and I grew closer. We began to talk more about the past, about fate, and how sometimes the world has a strange way of weaving lives together. But fate, I learned, doesn't bring peace without first testing your heart. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. Daniel's daughter, Sophie, began to pull away. She was kind and polite, but I could feel her hesitation, the quiet unease in her eyes when she looked at me. One afternoon, she asked if we could talk alone. We sat on the porch, the air heavy with the scent of summer rain. She took a deep breath. "I like you, Miss Anna. I really do, but I'm scared." "Scared?" I asked gently. "Of what, sweetheart?" She looked down at her hands. "Of forgetting my mom. Every time Dad smiles around you, I feel happy for him, but then I feel guilty, like I'm letting her go." Her words pierced through me. I reached over, holding her hand softly. "You're not forgetting her, Sophie. You're keeping her alive through the love you give your father and through the way you remember her. Loving someone new doesn't erase the past. It adds to it. It's like painting a new layer on the same canvas." Tears filled her eyes. "Did you ever feel that way?" I nodded. "Every day." She hugged me then, tightly, like a child clinging to safety. And in that moment, something inside me settled. Love wasn't about replacing anyone. It was about continuing the story. Later that night, Daniel thanked me quietly. He said, "You've brought peace into this house, Anna. I didn't think that was possible anymore." I smiled, And I think your wife had a hand in it, Anna. Maybe she's the one who guided my ring back to you." He chuckled softly. If that's true, she must have quite the sense of humor. We both laughed, but deep down, we knew it was more than humor. It was destiny, gentle, mysterious, and kind. A few weeks later, Daniel surprised me with something I'll never forget. We were walking by the lake, as we often did, when he stopped suddenly and handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photograph, the same picture of Emily by the lake, but restored and framed. And underneath it, he had written, "Sometimes what's lost isn't gone. It's just waiting for two hearts to meet again." I couldn't speak. Tears streamed down my face as he reached for my hand. The wind rustled through the trees, soft and tender, as if the world itself was holding its breath. "Anna," he said quietly, "I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this. Every day since you came back into my life, I've felt something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope." I looked at him, my heart full, and whispered, "Then let's not lose it this time." He smiled, and in that quiet, gentle moment, surrounded by the lake, the wind, and all the ghosts of our past, we both understood something profound. The ring wasn't just a circle of metal. It was a promise that love, in all its forms, always finds its way home. When I woke up the next morning, the light was soft and golden, spilling through my curtains like a quiet blessing. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel that heavy weight pressing on my chest. I just sat there for a while, listening to the birds outside, holding the little box with the ring inside. It was strange. Something that had caused me so much confusion and heartache had now become a source of peace. I finally understood what it meant. It wasn't just a ring, it was a circle. No beginning, no end. Like life, like love, like destiny that keeps finding its way back. That day, I decided to visit the small cafe where Daniel and I first met all those years ago. It was still there, though it looked a bit different. New paint, new chairs, but the same cozy warmth. I ordered the same thing I did back then: black coffee and a slice of apple pie. As I sat by the window, I remembered his smile, the way he looked at me as if I were the only person in the world. I thought of all the years I had wasted trying to fill the emptiness with things that never lasted. Jobs, places, even people. But somehow, the universe had found a way to give me back a piece of my heart. When I looked down at the ring, I whispered softly, "Thank you." I didn't even know who I was thanking, God, fate, or Daniel himself. But I felt grateful. Over the next few weeks, I began to feel lighter. I went through old photos, letters, and things I had once hidden away because they hurt too much to see. Instead of sadness, I began to feel gratitude for having known love so pure that it stayed with me even when he didn't. I even reached out to a few people I had drifted away from. My old friend Claire came over one afternoon, bringing a box of pastries and that familiar laughter that used to fill my house. We sat together, talking for hours about everything and nothing. When I told her about the ring and the story behind it, she held my hand and said, "Maybe the ring found you because it knew you were ready to love again." That sentence stayed with me. Ready to love again. Not necessarily someone new, but ready to love life again. Ready to open my heart to the world around me, to little joys, to kindness, to moments of peace. A few months later, I attended a small community art fair. It was something I used to do often, but had stopped going to after Daniel passed away. As I walked through the stalls, I felt that same spark I used to feel. The colors, the sounds, the laughter of strangers. Then, at one of the jewelry stands, I met an older gentleman named Robert. He was kind, with gentle eyes and a quiet presence. We talked about art, travel, and the beauty of things that age with grace. He wasn't like Daniel, not at all, But in a way, he reminded me that love doesn't always look the same every time. Sometimes, it's not about finding someone who completes you, but someone who understands that you've already been whole all along. We met for coffee a few times after that. He never rushed me, never tried to replace what I had lost. Instead, he listened and we shared stories about our lives, our joys, and our regrets. One day, as we walked by the lake, I told him the story of my lost ring. He smiled softly and said, "Maybe it wasn't lost. Maybe it was waiting, like we were." That moment felt like a quiet truth. I realized that the ring wasn't just about the past, it was also a reminder of the present. It was a symbol of the love that never truly leaves us. Even when people go, their love stays. In the way we think, the way we smile, the way we care. As time passed, Robert and I became close friends. Some evenings, we'd just sit on the porch watching the sunset in silence. There was comfort in that quiet companionship. It wasn't romance in the way people usually describe it. It was more like two souls gently resting beside each other after a long journey. Sometimes he would hold my hand, and I would feel that same warmth, different from what I once knew, but still beautiful in its own way. One evening, as we sat together, I took out the ring and showed it to him. He admired it and said, "That's a beautiful piece. You can tell it has a story." I smiled and replied, "It does. It found me when I thought I had nothing left to find." He nodded. "Then maybe it was meant to remind you that you never really lost yourself." That night, as I went to bed, I placed the ring back in its box. But instead of hiding it in the drawer, I kept it on my nightstand, not as a memory of loss, but as a reminder of how far I had come. Life, I realized, is full of circles. Things ending, only to begin again in a different way. Months turned into a year. I often visited the lake where I found the ring. It became a quiet ritual. I'd bring flowers, sit by the water, and talk softly as if Daniel could still hear me. I would tell him about my days, my small joys, and even about Robert. And in those moments, I didn't feel guilty or sad. I felt at peace. I felt like Daniel would have wanted that, for me to smile again, to live again. One afternoon, I noticed a little girl playing near the water, her laughter echoing through the breeze. Her mother, sitting nearby, smiled and said, "Careful! Don't drop your toys in the lake." The little girl giggled and said, "Don't worry, Mommy. The lake gives things back." I couldn't help but smile at her words. Maybe she was right. Maybe the lake, or life, really does give back what we lose, just in different forms. When I got home that evening, I opened my journal and wrote, "Sometimes the things we think are lost forever return, not to remind us of what we've lost, but to show us what we've learned." That became my quiet truth. Years later, I still wear that ring sometimes, not every day, but on days when I need strength, when I need to remember that love can transcend time. I often catch my reflection in the mirror, the glint of the ring shining faintly in the light, and I smile. I no longer see it as a symbol of what was lost, but of what continues. Love doesn't end. It changes form. It flows through people, through memories, through kindness, through second chances. One evening, while watching the sunset from my porch, I thought about everything. The years of longing, the grief, the rediscovery, and the quiet healing that followed. And I realized, maybe the ring wasn't meant to connect me to Daniel. Maybe it was meant to connect me to myself. To remind me that no matter how much time passes, no matter how many people come and go, love, the real kind, never disappears. It stays. it grows, it becomes the invisible thread that keeps our hearts alive. And in that stillness, I whispered once again, "Thank you." Not for the pain, not for the loss, but for the journey that made me who I am today. It's been many years now since that day by the lake, the day I found the ring that changed my life. Sometimes, when I think about it, it feels like a dream, like something that happened to someone else in another lifetime. And yet, the memories are still clear, as if the universe wanted me to never forget that quiet moment when everything began to make sense again. Life has a strange way of healing us, not through grand miracles, but through small, gentle moments. A ray of sunlight, a stranger's smile, an old song that suddenly makes you feel seen. That ring became one of those moments for me. It wasn't about finding Daniel again. It was about finding myself, the part of me that still believed in love, in hope, and in beginnings, no matter how late they come. Now, when I sit on my porch in the evenings, I often watch the horizon turn golden, then fade into soft pinks and blues. The world feels quieter now, not lonely, just peaceful. The kind of peace that comes after years of learning how to let go without forgetting. Sometimes I open the little box and look at the ring, the way the light dances on its surface. I smile and whisper, "We made it." Not just Daniel and I, but me, my heart, my story. I made it through the ache, through the empty nights, through the questions that never had answers. The truth is, love doesn't always stay in the way we expect it to. People go, circumstances change, time passes. But love, the real kind, leaves traces. It stays in the way we remember someone's laugh, the way we cook their favorite meal without thinking, the way we carry their kindness into every new day. There was a time I thought my life ended when Daniel's did, but now I see that love never ends. It simply changes shape. It becomes gentler, wiser. It turns from longing into gratitude. One evening, I took a small walk back to the lake. The air was calm, the water still, and the trees whispered softly in the wind. I stood there for a while, listening, not expecting an answer, but just feeling the connection that had never really broken. I held the ring in my hand one last time, feeling its cool metal against my skin. I smiled and said quietly, "You've done your job. Thank you for finding your way back to me." Then, with a slow breath, I placed it back into the water. Not out of sadness, but out of peace. It was time to let go, not of the love, but of the weight I had carried for so long. As the ripples spread across the surface, I felt something shift inside me. Lightness, release, acceptance. It wasn't the end of a story. It was a continuation, one that no longer needed symbols or signs to feel complete. When I turned to leave, I looked back one more time. The lake shimmered under the fading sunlight, and for a second, I thought I saw a reflection. Not of Daniel, but of myself, smiling. And in that moment, I knew everything I had lost, everything I had loved, and everything I had become, it was all part of the same beautiful circle. Now when I tell you this story, I don't tell it with tears anymore. I tell it with a quiet heart, because I've learned that sometimes the universe takes things from us only to give them back when we're ready to understand their true meaning. The ring wasn't about the past, it was about becoming whole again. We often think love is something we find outside ourselves, in another person, in another story. But love, the real kind, starts here, in the quiet corners of our own hearts, waiting to be remembered. If you've ever lost something, a person, a dream, a part of yourself, maybe it's not gone forever. Maybe it's just waiting, like that ring, for the right moment to return. And when it does, I hope you'll recognize it. I hope you'll hold it gently, smile, and say, "I'm ready now." Because sometimes what we lose isn't meant to stay gone. It's meant to lead us back to love, to peace, and to ourselves. That's the story of the ring I lost 20 years ago that connected me to my soulmate. But really, it's a story about life, about how love never truly leaves us. It just changes its form and waits patiently for us to find it again.